Good morning, fifth grade. This is Miss J, and today is Monday, May 11th. Before we get started with our reading lesson for today, make sure that not only you have this YouTube video up in a separate tab, but you also have your Google form open with our Stop and Jots, and you have our link of Bud Not Buddy open to Chapter 8. So again, today we're going to be reading Chapter 8. Bud is experiencing some new feelings now that an unexpected visitor has come to him this chapter, and with new potential plans. We will read pages 34 midway to page 36 together, stopping after the sentence ending with, "Then we'll be on the lam together." Make sure as we're reading to follow along as I read aloud. Then you will get into the first stop and jot explaining Bud's attitude towards having his unexpected visitor there in his next moments. This is beginning to connect our teaching point of identifying attitudes and feelings towards an event that is happening to an individual in a text. Something stepped on a little stick. As soon as the twig cracked my eyes, my eyes snapped open and I was wide awake. I held my breath and kept as still as I could. Whatever it was that was sneaking up on me knew I'd woke up because it stopped moving and kept as still as it could too. Even though my head was still under my blanket, I could feel two eyes staring at me real hard, and I knew these weren't critter eyes. These eyes made the hair on the back of my neck raise up the way only human beings' eyes can do. Without wiggling or jiggling around too much under my blanket, I got my fingers wrapped around my jackknife. Right when I was ready to push the covers off me and start running or stabbing, whoever it was that had been watching jumped right on top of me. I was as frapped as a roach under a dish rag. I tried to guess the exact spot that the person's heart was at, then pulled my knife back. A voice said, "If you ain't a kid called Bud from the home, I'm really sorry about jumping on you like this." It was Bugs. When I tried to talk, it felt like I had to suck all the air out of Flint. I finally got breathing right and said, "Doggone it, Bugs, it is me. You nearly scared me to death." He got off of me and I threw the blanket over to the side. "You don't know how lucky you are. I was just about fixing to stab you in the heart." Bugs looked like he knew he'd just had a real close call. He said, "I'm sorry, Bud. I didn't mean to scare you. But everybody knows how you like to sleep with that knife open, so I figured I'd best grab hold of you so you wouldn't wake up slicing nobody." Shucks, even though it was Bugs who'd come real close to getting his heart poked, I was the one who was still having trouble catching my breath. I asked, "How come you aren't back at the home?" But before he had a chance to answer, I knew. "You're on the lam." Bugs said, "Yep, I'm going back to riding the rails. When I heard about you beating that kid up so bad that you had to take off, I figured it was time for me to get going too. I thought you might be hanging around the library, so I come down to see if you wanted to go with me." "Where are you heading?" "There's always fruits to be picked out west. I heard we can make enough money to get by out there. There's supposed to be a train leaving sometime tomorrow." "Did you really beat that kid up in the foster home?" I said, "Uh-huh. We kind of had a fight." "How long's it take to get out west?" Bugs said, "Depends on how many trains you got to hop." "Was he really 2 years older than you?" "Uh-huh, he was 12. Is it fun to hop a train?" "Some of the time it is. Some of the time it's scary." "We heard he was kind of big too, was he?" I said he was pretty big. I can't see how we can hop on a train. They look like they're moving pretty doggone fast." Bugs said, "Most times you don't hop them. when they're going fast. Most times you try to climb on one when it's sitting in the train yard. Did the guy cry after you whooped him? Well, kind of. He looked real scared, then told his mama to keep me away from him. They even said I was a hoodlum. Will we be sleeping on the train and everything? Sure we will. Some of the time the train don't stop for 2 or 3 days. Me and I always try to tell people that just because someone's skinny, it don't mean they can't fight. You're a hero now, bud. Nah, I didn't really do nothing much. Well, how about the toilet? How are we going to use the toilet if the train doesn't stop? Bug said, you just kind of lean out of the door and go. When the train is still moving, yeah, you get a real nice breeze. Oh man, that sounds great. Count me in. I can't wait. Bug spit a big glob of slob in his hand and said, I knew I could depend on you, bud. I spit a big glob in my hand and said, we're brothers forever, Bugs. We slapped our hands together as hard as we could and got our slobs mixed up real good, then waved them in the air so they'd dry. Now it was official. I finally had a brother. Bug said, we'll go down to the mission. There's bound to be someone there that knows about where we can hop this train. Then we'll be on the lam together. So we're going to pause right here. You're going to head over to your Google form and answer your first Stop and Jot. Once you've done that, come back to the video. Stop and Jot number 1 asks, explain how Bud feels about Bug surprising him and explain how he feels about their new plan. Bud was initially scared that it was someone he didn't know. He knew it wasn't an animal because he felt the stares of a human on him. But once he realized it was Bugs, he was so excited to know that they're both on the lam together. Now they're going on the train to travel and get away together. Bud feels like he officially has a brother and can't wait for their new journey. We're going to read aloud the rest of page 36 and stop after reading page 37. We found out that we'd have to go to a city called Hooperville, just outside of Flint. The only trouble was nobody knew exactly where Hooperville was. It was dark before we found out the right direction. I'd never heard of a city that was so doggone hard to find. We walked on a trail through some woods that run right up against Thread Creek. We could tell we were getting close to Hooperville because we heard somebody playing a mouth organ and the smell of food cooking was getting stronger. We kept walking in the direction that the sky was glowing with an orangish light. When we could hear the music real clear and folks talking to each other and the sound of sticks cracking in a fire, we started cutting through the trees. That way we could peek into Hooperville first. We looked out from behind a big tree and saw that a big wind, or even 2 or 3 big wolves huffing and puffing real hard, could blow Hooperville into the next county. It was a bunch of huts and shacks thrown together out of pieces of boxes and wood and cloth. The Amos's shed would have looked like a real fancy house here. Right near our tree was the big fire that had been lighting up the sky. It looked like 100 people were sitting around it, watching things burn or waiting for the food cooking in 3 big pots set up in the fire. There were 2 littler fires burning in Hooperville. One had a pot that was big enough to boil a whole person in it. A man was stirring things in the pot with a big stick, and when he raised the stick up, he'd pull some breeches or a shirt out and pass it over to a white man who was hanging the clothes on a line to dry. There was a mountain of clothes on the ground next to him, waiting on their turn. The other fire in Hooverville was real small. It was off to the side by itself. There were 5 white people sitting at this fire, 2 kids, a man, and a woman holding a little wrapped up baby. The baby sounded like all those new sick babies at the home. It was coughing like it was a half-dead little animal. Bugs whispered, "Shoot, this ain't no city, this is just another cardboard jungle." "A what?" "A cardboard jungle, somewhere you can get off the train and clean up and get something to eat without the cops chasing you out of town." I said, "Well, what are we going to do? We can't just go busting into the city and expect someone to feed us, can we?" Bugs said, "One of us has got to talk to them. Let's flip for it." "Okay." Bugs rumbled around in his pocket and found a penny. He rubbed it up against his breeches and said, "Heads, I win. Tails, you lose." "Okay." He flipped the penny up into the air and caught it, then slapped it down on the back of his left hand. He peeked underneath his right hand to see, and a big smile cracked his face. He peeked underneath his right hand to see, and a big smile cracked his face. "Shucks." What do you think Bugs means when he says, "This is just another cardboard jungle"? I just want you to keep that in mind as you continue to read the rest of this chapter. You're going to finish reading this section of chapter 8 for today, pages 38 to 41, independently, then get into your second stop and jot. Bud is going through yet another stir of emotions, especially in the new setting. You will now identify and explain how Bud is feeling based off of the new setting and his conversation with the mouth organ man. This is further connecting us to the teaching point of identifying a character's feelings based off of reaction to an event in the story. Once you've read pages 38 to 41, come back to the video. So now that you've returned back to the video, you should have read pages 38 to 41. Today's secret code for reading class is ELMO. ELMO, ELMO. Again, in lowercase letters, today's secret code is ELMO. ELMO. Now you're going to head over to your stop and jot and answer question number 2. Going to explain how Bud feels when he is conversing with the mouth organ man about Hooverville. Welcome back. So you should have answered your second stop and jot and realize that Bud goes through a wave of feelings because he's trying to be confident and how ask about Hooverville. He doesn't want people to view him as a baby, so he isn't trying to say he's scared, just nervous about the days to come there. Bud doesn't know one thing about Hooverville, so he's trying his best to have an adult-like conversation in order to figure it out. You will read pages 42 to 46 for homework before Wednesday's lesson. There will be an exit ticket before you can begin Wednesday's new lesson. So make sure that you do not finish chapter 8. We will only read these pages of chapter 8 for homework, then finish chapter 8 for class on Wednesday. Now you can head over to your Stop and Jot and complete your exit tickets for today's video. That's all that we have for today's reading class. Enjoy the rest of your Monday.